Here we go. Hello and welcome to the JMac podcast. I'm John McMahon, and today we are joined by Barry Waters. Barry is the head of sports science in Stat Sports, and he is a Dundalk jail supporter. But we're trying to get him back to Cavan, but it'll be very hard. Barry, how's things, pal?
Yeah, all good now, John. Cheers for having me on, and looking forward to catching up with you and having a chat.
Good stuff. And look, Barry, at the end of the day, I'm repeating myself, but how have you found the lockdown take 3? And at this stage, it probably takes, seems like lockdown take 50.
Yeah, it's been, I think it's since the turn of the year now, it's been definitely a little bit of a struggle, just keeping the routine and keeping the motivation going. But yeah, no, I've been, like, since March last year, I've been working from home. So just where I'm sitting here now, this is now my office for the past year as well. So yeah, it's well used to it now, and I suppose there is some pluses to being able to work from home, with just being able to get more of a routine with exercise and everything. So I think everyone's on an exercise buzz at this stage, just to try to get out of the house and do something a little bit different. But yeah, the lockdown, look, it's been fine for me, thankfully. Don't have any family or friends or anything who have picked up COVID or had any adverse effects. So yeah, look, it's fine. People are certainly a lot worse off. So yeah, it's you got to keep the prospect of what's in front of you and sort of not get too bogged down in everything, because there's not much good news nowadays coming out of it. But
yeah, good stuff. And I suppose in recent days and weeks, we've kind of, and we were chatting off air there as well. You're obviously a big Gaelic football fan, and it's not being put down as an elite sport. Barry, what's your opinions on that? Because everyone seems to be a bit frustrated by it, seeing as it was an elite sport last year. What's your opinion on that? Or
yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one. It was quite surprising when it came out, that it wasn't going to go ahead. Certainly for the club player like yourself or myself, it was the first thing you think is, okay, that means we might not have a season now at all, or it's certainly going to be well pushed back. But yeah, it's like I didn't read into it too much, but I suppose their whole concept on the elite side of things seems to be around like the inability to like stay within a bubble, like when you're part of that squad, which I suppose, we work with professional teams and at Stat Sports, and they've got the money to be able to do that, and that is their day job. So most of what they do is they stay in like hotels or keep in bubbles and get tested every day. So I can kind of see where they're coming from, because obviously the GA itself is like steeped in community, and you sort of always go back into your community. And the players nowadays, albeit they're probably still not classified as an elite technically, because they have jobs and they're professional jobs as well, they certainly train like elite athletes, So frustrating for them, I'm sure, and frustrating for a lot of players who, maybe coming to the end of their careers and stuff as well, or just kind of trying to figure out what they want to do as well. So yeah, it's a tough one to take, but hopefully we'll get some better news towards the middle of the year, and if they can get the inter-county even championship run off and then get us into like a club championship, that would be a start anyway.
Yeah, good stuff. And I suppose, Barry, we can touch on your football days as well, because I am intrigued by your job, and there'll be a lot of listeners intrigued by what you're doing with Stat Sports. But I suppose, Barry, you obviously, before transferring to Dundalk Gaels, you're a drung man here in Cavan, and you've represented Cavan as well in underage level and senior level and bits and pieces. But I suppose we can touch on your club drung. When did you get the ball rolling with drung, say, back? And was it maybe under 10s at this stage, I'd say?
Yeah, geez, a long time ago. The earliest memories I have, I'd say, was up there when I was, I'd say about 5 or 6. My dad would have had me up there quite a bit, up at the pitch, and my older brother would have played as well. So for as long as I can remember, I played with drung and sort of came through the age groups, and I think I started playing with like the under 12 team when I was around 7 or 8 or so, and then sort of there was a good bunch of lads there. We kind of were successful enough at our level, like, whatever it would have been, Ryan C or Ryan B, I think at that time, whenever they were they were still classified as that. So yeah, had a really good time there and up through the years with Drung, and then also with St Finbarrs when we would have joined with Kill as well, sort of for under 16 and under 18 level as we moved through.
Yeah, yeah, and suppose Drone. I suppose when you look at it, you probably would have been what intermediate, junior, kind of over the years. Like, what did you make of the kind of standard over the years, kind of maybe in the league and championship? Because I suppose the standard of Cavan football club wise has probably been 50-50 over the years, Barry. But I suppose before you made the jump to Dundalk Gales, what did you make of the standard? Were you happy with it, or were you just just happy to be involved? I suppose.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it goes without saying for anyone who's playing for their home club. I still obviously have very fond memories of Drung, and just with the work commitments and where I live now and everything just hasn't worked out. But yeah, like a really good time there. Yeah, the level it's always difficult. Yeah, we sort of hovered around intermediate level for a number of years. I think I played in before I started playing Drung, we're up in Division 1 and would have been playing senior level, and then sort of when everything was reorganised or Division 2 and sort of intermediate then. I didn't have the best of starts now at Drung. I think it was in 2007. I think we got relegated from intermediate down to junior, but in fact it was probably blessed in disguise. We won the junior the following year, I think, as top favourites now when we went back up. But yeah, I'd say, I know you would have played in intermediate level and stuff in Cavan. It's an extremely difficult level to get out of. We got semi-finals, quarter-finals, I'd say 6-7 years in a row, and I think we lost in the semi-final to 4 eventual winners, by a point and stuff. And yeah, we just couldn't get over the line, which is very frustrating. I would have liked to get us up a level, but then a small club like Drung, it sort of just depends on the batch that you get as well. Because Drung wouldn't have big numbers. You're trying to compete with small numbers, and it can be difficult to compete at that level. But overall, it's funny. That's a question everyone sort of asks me as soon as you move away. Like when I moved up to Louth, there was sort of massive difference in the standards and stuff. And I don't think so. It was it's still extremely difficult, in Cavan to win an intermediate championship. I know that for a number of years, maybe the styles of football and stuff that clubs were playing was maybe frustrating for people, but I think unfortunately Cavan teams just haven't done it on the Ulster stage. I think that's probably where that comes from, and a lot of that can be, and I know from when we won the junior ourselves, we had a good time in 2008 after we won it, and probably just completely took our eye off the ball of playing in an Ulster. We played in the Ulster and we lost by 2 points, and at the end of it everyone's like, geez, we're not going to have that chance again, and we just he's had a piss up for 2 weeks or whatever before it, so not the best preparation. But I think it's all different, and I think the way Cavan is structured, it makes it very competitive, certainly at that intermediate level. There's a lot of teams around that level, and there's probably not as many strong senior teams, albeit it's probably getting more competitive as the years have went on now as well, with that being shared around a lot of clubs as well. So and
I suppose definitely down in Drone, I suppose you probably aren't blessed, because it's just whoever you have really around the area, you aren't blessed with population, I suppose. So I would have always remarked yourself and there's Kieran Galligan and Big James Riley and bits and pieces, but James Riley can't play forever, unfortunately, and I think Kieran Galligan would have transferred as well along with yourself. But did you ever feel this the pressure on you, Barry, over the years? Obviously, if you don't have that much effect, did you ever find a lot of pressure on yourself when you did play for Drum?
I suppose it depends what way you look at it. Pressure, I I sort of thrive in that situation for sure. With trying to, and I probably put more pressure on myself, to be honest with you, now before games and stuff. But no, I would have never said any felt any specific pressure from players or fans or anything like that. It's more, I think it's more that we couldn't afford to have injuries, or we couldn't really afford to be missing too many, where some other people might be able to. No, but I really enjoyed it. We had a lot of good players who probably aren't as recognised in Cavan, but very, very good players in their own right at club level. And I think every club has some of them, they work extremely hard and put in a lot of effort over the years. And yeah, I suppose that was more the pressure, for sure. I definitely, one of the key things I wanted was to win an intermediate, but we couldn't get it over the line, unfortunately, because, yeah, look, it's great to win the junior and everything, but you always strive to compete at the highest level you can, so but yeah, I find it enjoyable, competitive, especially in Cavan football. Everyone knows you and everything like that, so it's some good local rivalries and stuff. So for sure, I miss them. I miss getting called names and everything under the sun whenever. But yeah, I'm getting used to it up here now as well, because I'm the blow-in up here, so yeah, they don't know where I'm from half the time, I don't think.
And do you want to tell us any of the nicknames or any of the lovely stuff the Cavan lads would have been saying to you over the years, Barry?
I don't know if too much of that is repeatable now, but yeah, it's all. To be fair, I'd say I probably deserved most of it. I quite enjoy getting into battles and stuff once it doesn't affect my game, but I think earlier on when I was younger, I definitely used to be a lot more hot-headed and get affected by it, but as I got a little bit older, you sort of learn to sometimes use them type of mental battles to your advantage as well. So no, it's all, for me, it's always fun and games when you're playing, and then you shake hands at the end, and there's no hard feelings after it.
Yeah, you gave as good as you got. Fair play, in fairness. I'm pushing off on that, Barry. When did you make the breakthrough to the Cavan team? Because you obviously would have been an underage team before that, and then the senior team, I think, was at 08. I remember seeing you playing a few games. Did you enjoy your kind of county experience as well for Cavan?
Yeah, for sure. It was brilliant, and I think I made the breakthrough into the senior panel in 2008, just off the back of a number of years at minor and stuff. So yeah, that was enjoyable. I came in under Donald Kyogan when he was manager there, and Donald would have had me at underage and stuff as well, minor, when we were beaten in a couple of the replays against down minors and stuff in Crossmaglen. That was one that we sort of left behind us as well. But yeah, Donald took me in, and at that point I was up at DCU. There was a good contingent of Cavan lads up there, and I know you had Ronan Flanagan on before. He was up in DCU and stuff as well. So I was under good tutelage up there with all the lads. So yeah, it was brilliant to be called in, and really enjoyed my time with Cavan. Probably, if anything, come out of it with regrets, to be honest with you. Finished up playing, say, 2012 or towards the end of it. A lot of injuries and a lot of niggles, and eventually done my ACL then as well, and that sort of put a stop to it. And then I just never got back to them levels. And to be honest with you, the lads nowadays are machines, in fairness to them, physically in phenomenal shape, and the time and dedication they put towards it is unbelievable. And I just never got back to those levels. So, but really enjoyed it, and great experience, but just feel probably regret that I went straight in off the back of my minor sort of playing days. Probably in hindsight, easy to say now in hindsight, it was a bit too soon, not because I wasn't able or anything, but probably just because of the amount of football. I was playing club, playing with DCU freshers and Sigerson, playing with Cavan under 21. Just too many teams, and not everyone sort of working together. You know what I mean? Every manager just wants you to play, so there was no sort of he should maybe rest this game or that type of thing. So, but yeah, that's my own fault. I should have learned to say no a lot earlier as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you touch on that, Barry, because Ronan Flanagan would have mentioned that last week. He played for a lot of teams and he loved it. And we're like, look, a current topic at the minute is player burnout, bits and pieces. But I suppose at that age and at that time, Barry, did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy the commitment that it brought to your life, or did you ever feel, God, I'm going a bit mad here?
Yeah, no, I think like when I first got called in, I was buzzing, as any, young fella is, and thankfully, again with Cavan winning this year, it just spurs on, all these young people wanting to play for Cavan, and like that's all I wanted to do growing up. Like, you know what I mean? I represented Cavan under 15, 16, 17 into the minors, and then, like to get called into the senior panel so early was brilliant, and played with some of the lads who, to be honest, I had their signatures in the notebook that I had from the last Ulster title, from Anthony Ford and Dermot McCabe and those guys. Yeah. So, now I was lining out alongside them. So for me, it was brilliant. I was absolutely buzzing to do it. Really enjoyed it. I think as I went, I think you said Ronan alluded to it. I think at one stage I was playing for like 9 teams at one point, just across like college and club and Cavan as well. Like, you were going from game to game. So I'd say maybe around 2011 or so, I was fatigued. Like, you probably could call it burnout now, to be honest with you. And yeah, just sort of didn't have the appetite for the game anymore, sort of didn't want to go to training, didn't really feel like going to training. But yeah, it's hard to know. It's just, I think it was all that plus the injuries. I was getting very frustrated. I get really frustrated when I can't perform to the level that I know I probably can, So, yeah, I picked up groin injuries, sort of chronic groin injuries. And thankfully, Enda King from Cavan obviously works in the sports surgery clinic. I've seen him and he sorted all that out and sort of getting myself back on track, and played with that Cavan junior squad, we competed in the All Ireland. Remember, we won the Leinster the year. I'm trying to remember the year now, against Kildare, but
2012.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I come back at that stage, sort of been chatting then to Terry Highland about going back in 2013 or whatever, and then unfortunately done my ACL towards the end of that year, just after coming off the back of all the grind stuff that Enda got me through. So yeah, it was hugely frustrating. And then after that, yeah, just wasn't back at that level of the shape that you sort of needed to be in, and part of that's down to myself. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose I don't know why I can always remember that game. I think of me and Paul Hardy were talking about a couple of weeks ago against Armagh in 2008 Ulster Championship. I think Ronan was even kind of saying Cavan probably a team that could probably win the championship that year as well, Barry. And did you feel you could actually give the Ulster Championship a good rattle that year? Like, I know Armagh, did beat us, but like, do you feel we had a team capable of winning an Ulster Championship? Because I know, you had Darren McCabe, you had Jelly Johnson, you had definitely a lot of quality there.
Yeah, a lot of talent, like, and for sure, I think like the confidence was probably low. We'd come off the back of a league campaign that was tough, But in the first game of that league, that was actually my debut in the league, was up in Crossmaglen against Armagh. We lost that first league game by a point to like a last minute sort of free by one of the Kernan boys. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah. And then we had a couple of defeats against Meath and Monaghan. And then we actually bet Cork in Breffni that year in 2008, who, Cork had been beaten All Ireland finalists the year before, so very positive. And then, unfortunately, we didn't stay up in the league, and we played Antrim. That was my senior championship debut. Up in Casement. Good win. Expected to win. They're tough ones where everyone looks at you and just goes, well done. You bet Antrim. We expected you to do that. So, the game against Armagh probably, could we have kicked on? Probably. We just probably didn't have the firepower, which we maybe didn't have for a number of years. With Cavan just not scored, not enough prolific forwards sort of contributing. I know Shawnee obviously always put in big scores, but probably didn't have enough help around him and stuff. And I think Armagh now we only lost by 4 points that game, but I think they were in control, for a lot of that game as well. Just they had been around the block. They had something like 5 or 6 Ulster titles in the build up to that, so they had big names in there as well,
Yeah, and I suppose kind of pushing up now, like '09, and you kind of said 2012 was probably your last year, really, kind of the county involvement. I know you've done a bit with the juniors. I remember that, and I suppose I suppose you're kind of in and out of the cabin squads a bit space, but with the injuries, I suppose the burnout you're having when and you say you look back with a bit of regret, bits and pieces, but when you see maybe cabin being maybe successful and like doing well in 2013 and 14 and bits and pieces, would you be kind of looking at, God, I actually wouldn't mind being part of that?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. There's always that part of anyone who's sort of competed or played at that level. You're always thinking, "Jesus, I'd love to be in there now," But I knew myself physically, like I had sort of probably let myself go a little bit too much for the game. Like changed quite rapidly as well over a number of years. Especially with the emergence of Dublin and everything. These guys are now, well-oiled machines who are, physically in phenomenal shape. So, but definitely I would have, I think Rory would have played a lot. Rory Dunn from Red Hills, me and him would have joined the panel at the same time. And Martin Riley, I think, joined around 2008 as well. So, yeah, you sort of look on, you're like, yeah, I'd love to be playing, but I just knew that I wasn't at that level. But at the same time, absolutely delighted for the lads. Yeah, 2013, it was Kerry, wasn't it? They got to the quarter final. Yeah, I was up there. I had a good time at it anyway.
Didn't we all? Didn't we all? And I suppose kind of moving on, Barry, the times are good with Cavan football, and geez, me and you are staunch Cavan followers at this stage. We talk about it all night. We got a chance, and we've had success. The Ulster champions from 2020, and I suppose in recent years, it always would have been remarked. Cavan fans we are very hungry people. We do demand a lot, but do you think we need to be a bit more realistic kind of over the years, Barry? Because at the end of the day, we did have a lot of players dropping out and a lot of lads leaving the panel too, Barry.
Yeah, I think it's, firstly this year, phenomenal. Like it's so much joy brought. I was jumping around my sitting room downstairs here a couple of times thinking we were dead and buried, and we pulled it out. So the boys, were phenomenal and great ambassadors for Cavan and everything that they stand for with the fight and everything. I think every county expects, something. I know they say, oh, we won't or whatever. I think what fueled Cavan probably was, that underage success at under 21 level specifically, really well, the structures were got in place, brought a lot of players through at a consistent level and consistently competed and won Ulster. And I think people then think that maybe it's easy to transition into a senior team, it's certainly not. There's still a gap there from that under 20 level to senior level, and just the know-how as well. Success breeds success, and just trying to get over the line is the hard one. And I think what the guys done this year has been phenomenal. And yeah, it's a strange one when you think of lots of good players and everything I've went through, and yeah, you think, Jesus, how did we not win one with some of these teams? But it comes down to that hunger and discipline as well. And even maybe when I know for some years when I was in there, when I look at it now, and again it's in hindsight, but you look at the setup and you think, was it as professional as it could have been? And you're like, definitely not. Do you know what I mean? And you look at the guys now and you know how much they train and the sacrifices and effort that they put in. It's, everything we see and everything the fans see as being, successful and unsuccessful is only the top of the tip of the iceberg. The guys put in endless hours of just, unseen efforts and stuff to get themselves prepped, and especially with family and friends, you can miss a lot as well. And as you alluded to there, the turnover of players, I think every county that's not successful, so I'm talking outside of Dublin and stuff, has huge turnover because the commitment's just kind of unmanageable at the minute, with trying to train 6-7 nights a week, and if you've got family and kids, it's very hard, I'm sure, to keep that up.
Yeah, and tell me a bit about that. I'm intrigued by that, Barry. Like you're kind of saying, like the professional setup within maybe the cabin squads over the years when you were involved. Like, what did you feel like? I know, okay, things we've steadied the ship now, but what did you feel maybe we were missing over the years that probably could have gave us that edge, Barry?
I think it's like not anything in particular, and maybe most counties were like this. More just the whole, like, let's say the strength and condition side of it, or the whole nutrition side of it, and just understanding the sacrifices that needed to be made. Maybe back then, like, it was good enough to play for Cavan. Do you know what I mean? Instead of Ulster or All Ireland's being what you're aiming for. But look, that's in hindsight. Maybe it's easy to say that now, and I just think when you look at the players we had, I just think we could have done better. Like, do you know what I mean? And that's the frustrating thing. But yeah, that just comes down to the group and everything, and it's difficult because it's hard to pinpoint management or players. But I think at the end of the day, it has to stop with the players and the effort they're putting in, and everyone rowing in the right direction. I think that's probably the one thing you see from the Cavan team now. Like, there's certainly very good camaraderie, and like they seem to all be very good friends and everything, and all pulling in the one direction for the one goal. And like that's a lot of years of effort from Terry Highland, obviously, and then Mickey has stepped in as well and brought that even further. So yeah, it's a lot of years of fruition coming there now, and we probably didn't have that conveyor belt back when I was playing anyway, for sure.
Yeah, no, because I find it so interesting because like I was chatting to him McGee there a couple of months ago, and he was kind of saying like the whole mentality was switched in Donegal, and Jim McGuinness installed his winning belief, and you're not handing an Anglo-Celt Cup at the end of the day. Like, do you kind of feel like obviously we don't want to kind of go at any of the Cavaliers, but do you kind of feel maybe the lads that maybe did leave the panel could be right? If you were to look at it, you're probably looking at 30, 40, 50 lads that has left over the years. Do you feel maybe they were like a bit privileged, or like do you feel there wasn't enough work being put in, or like what do you think maybe was the problem over the years, Barry?
I think some of the more recent ones, I think a lot of that's personal. Like, like I don't specifically know, but if you look at personal circumstances, if you've got a kid or family, or you're getting married or anything, it's a lot of time commitment. Like, without knowing all the lads, I don't think so. Like, I think everyone that's played for Cavan, wants to win something, but at some point you've also got to live life as well. Like, and I suppose that's one of the key things that you need to try get across. It's not the be all and end all of everything. Like, I think a lot of young lads, and myself included, probably when I was younger, just tunnel vision, just play with Cavan, do this, and maybe neglect other areas of your life, a little bit that you probably shouldn't. So if you can find that right balance between, committing to the county and the structure and the commitment that there is, plus keeping your friendships and family and everything together, then I think that's good. But like, yeah, it's hard to comment on the turnover. I think, we probably had a high turnover of managers for a number of years, certainly before Terry came in. And with that, you get, trying new players, testing out new players. And then, yeah, I think the turnover of players then probably is a lot of players coming to maybe the end of their careers, alongside just sort of maybe, I know myself, if you're a player, you're looking ahead and you're trying to weigh up the pros and cons. If, is it worth putting in this time commitment for, as you say, Cavan people can be demanding as well. It might be a kick up the arse or a comment in town some night to say, you're useless or whatever it is. But, there's just a lot of things that go into it. So I assume most of them are very personal, just to their own circumstances, like.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose what impresses, because obviously you're very big into sports science end of things and like fitness and bits and pieces, and like what impresses you about, say, the 2020 Cavan Ulster winning team? Because like my general consensus is like they're a hard working good group of lads that want to put on the blue and white Cavan and bits and pieces like that. Like what impressed you most? Like what stood out for you watching, say, the Ulster campaign?
I think just like initially anyway, just fitness levels, they seem to be in incredible shape, like, because I've been in a position a few times where you've been 7 or 8 points down, and it's got worse. It went to 12 or 13, you know what I mean? It's so like that, and then the belief. I think they had a huge belief in what they were doing. Like, everyone knew their roles. They all committed to doing what they'd obviously been doing in training for endless nights. I just think really disciplined as well. I think sometimes like you can see them getting back, not fouling. You know what I mean? It's hard to get in and put in aggressive tackles and not foul, but like they had serious discipline in the tackle, and like that Donegal game was like hugely impressive in that first half, the amount of turnovers, and especially with such a physical team. So yeah, I think the overall physical shape of the team and really well balanced, like, as not that there's no standout players, but they're all like extremely good in their own right, and the team is very balanced at all areas, like.
Yeah, as you say, definitely agree with that. Now, it was seriously impressive stuff by the boys. And I suppose pushing off on that, Barry, as well, like you've made the transfer up to Dundalk Gales. You're with them, 2 or 3 years now. And how do you find that kind of transition, Barry, like say from obviously from going from Cavan football to Louth football? How have you found all that?
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, I just live in Blackrock in Dundalk here now. And I transferred to Dundalk Gales just through knowing Derek Curley, who used to play with Loud. He's a Dundalk Gales club man, so ended up joining them. Yeah, it's been brilliant. The group of lads have been fantastic. Sort of welcomed me in with open arms. I think like a big difference I noticed is I play with a town team now, so they've got a lot of numbers. You've got huge numbers, like, we're talking between 30 and 40 at training pretty much every night. I was telling them that we used to have 7 and 8 at training and drunk sometimes, so they couldn't understand how training would still go ahead with them numbers. I was like, well, that's what you're dealing with, but it's two different things, because they've got huge numbers here in a huge area. But yeah, it's been brilliant. Their senior championship, so the first year I got up here, we actually got to the senior final. It's the first time in a long time, but unfortunately we didn't get across the line. We lost in the final to the Newtown Blues, who have won a lot of back-to-back championships up here. So we didn't perform on the day. And then, the last couple of years now we just haven't performed as well. We've got to quarterfinals and semi-finals, but just haven't got ourselves back to that peak. But standard is good. I know, like, people looking from the outside in, they'll probably look at Loud and think, it's a soft touch and everything like that, and the standard isn't good. But I think, hugely competitive. There's 10 teams in senior. There's a lot less teams in Loud, obviously, across the league. So, it's quite competitive. And then the same sort of league structure as well. And Loud are making great strides forward now at the minute with just everything behind the scenes. Obviously on the pitch, it hasn't happened for them, and they themselves have had quite a turnover. They've went towards youth at the underage levels, and at the senior team, the average age I think was like 24 or 25 when they played there this year. So, and then obviously the news of Mickey coming in, although he hasn't been able to get going. So that would be a huge boost. And Loud themselves are planning a new stadium and everything in Dundalk. Everything is moving well in that sense. So I've really enjoyed it. It's competitive. It's just good to be involved. I just love playing football, so it's good to play somewhere else and against other people as well, to sort of see if you still have it or not, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're not using this podcast as a come get me plea to Mickey Hart, Barry, but
I think Mickey will have plenty of names on his list now before he'd get stuck on my one, I'd say, so he'll be all right. There's some unbelievable players in Loud, like, it's and that's the thing. It's frustrating for them. I obviously follow Loud a lot more now as well. They just haven't been able to perform on the field, but hopefully with Mickey coming in, with all this stuff that's going on in the background, they can get back to it, because they've had some great players over the year like Paddy Keenan, and obviously the people of Loud are heavily upset by the 2010 Meath game and stuff as well. So you better not bring that up right here as well. It doesn't go down too well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I suppose, Barry, you kind of said you kind of lost your growth for the game and love for the game, and you probably would have took a few years out, maybe from going from Drone to Dundalk Hills. And like, how did you find? Like, did you get like when you went to Dundalk Hills, did you get your interest back straight away, or did it take? Was there a bit of teething problems, or how did you find it?
No, it was fine. Like so, like the way the transfer itself, like I'd been living up in Dundalk and sort of traveling up and down to play with Drung for I'd say about 2 years. Going home during the week and stuff. And now look, it's not the furthest away. It's an hour and 20 minutes or whatever, up and down the road. But still, I'd just been started working with Stat Sports and everything, and I had a lot of travel when I first started because I was like a sports science account manager at the beginning, where I used to travel to the UK a lot, traveled really throughout the world with Stat Sports. So just I didn't feel like I was given the right commitment to drawing and that, and I ended up taking a year out, where I didn't play for anyone, at all, just sort of to give myself a little bit of breathing space. Yeah, and then at the end of that, I sort of decided, right, okay, I'm gonna move up to Dundalk because that's where work and life, and yeah, now where I own a house and everything up here as well. So it just made more sense, albeit I'd still, my friends and everything play with Drung, and my brother still plays with Drung. So yeah, you still look out for them as well. But I think it just makes more sense for me at the minute just to play where I am here.
Yeah, yeah. And we have to give a fellow Cav man a mention up there, Joe Donoghue. He's between the sticks. He's a Lara man. So he obviously made that transition from Lara to Dundalk Hills as well, Barry.
Yeah, he did. He did. It's not too often now you'd put a Drung and a Lara man together and let them get on. I'll be truthful about that. There would have been plenty of rows with Lara over the years when I was with Drung, but yeah, no, Joe's a great lad. Joe was working and in college up here, transferred up, and yeah, Joe plays in goals for us at the minute. Yeah, and Joe was in with Cavan as well for a year. So yeah, he's a brilliant shot stopper, great lad, and trains a lot. Loves training like all the other goalkeepers. But he does more running than some of them that I would have seen over the years now for sure. But yeah, he's up here now, so it's good. We're the butt of most of the jokes now, to be honest. Me and Joe, any sort of if there's any Cavan jokes you haven't heard of, I can send them on to you because we get sent them on the group on the weekly at this stage. usually about being tight or not paying for something, but couldn't be further from the truth. For me, anyway. I don't know about Joe.
Well, I've never dealt with. I've dealt with you. You're a top man. I've never dealt with Joe now, but that could be an interesting one. And I suppose pushing off on that, Barry, like in your current role with Stat Sports, you're the head of sports science. So this is obviously very interesting stuff, Barry. If you want to explain your role and how you're enjoying it so far.
Yeah. So it's been brilliant. Now I've been with the company since 2013, actually, that kind of year that I took out. So yeah, well, it's coming up on 8 years now. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, so I started out with them back then. The company itself specializes in GPS technology. So you'll see most people recognize it as like a sports bra or a vest. You will have seen Cavan actually wear them as well. Cavan are one of our clients. Yeah, so you wear that, and there's a little unit that goes into the back. Most people would notice it probably in like the rugby jerseys or even in the GAA jerseys, and obviously Lee Keegan would have made it famous as well, throwing it at Dean Rock as well. We didn't condone that, but it's a very good use of it. If I had a thought of it, I probably would have used that myself another time. But yeah, so we specialize in like all physical performance, so like distance covered, speed, accelerations, decelerations, sprints, and yeah, we have like a proprietary software then that analyzes all that data and gives an overview of the team and the individual over time. So yeah, it's been the company itself went from strength to strength. When I started, there was about 10 people there. We've about 115 or 120 people now at the last count, and offices in like Chicago and Newry as well, and yeah, work with a lot of the biggest sporting organizations sort of throughout the world. Me and your beloved Man United are one of our clients as well, so tough week for us there this week with another draw. But the company's been fantastic. I worked my way through sort of being a sports scientist, being like a key account manager for different teams throughout the world, um, into like a research and development role, and then most recently like the head of sports science and product at Stat Sports, which involves like the innovation of new technology, and so new like software offerings or how we utilize the hardware that we have, and then any sort of research in the industry as well, getting like scientific research done with institutions throughout the world. So yeah, really exciting, fast-paced industry, and like tech in sport is absolutely massive now. It's even at GA level. We work with a lot of the teams there now. Where a few years ago it probably wasn't as normal, but now it certainly is the norm. And yeah, we have like a consumer product as well, where you just have an app on your phone and you wear the unit yourself. So it's more mainstream, and most people who play now are just mad for data and tech and numbers. So it's definitely a change in how people look at the game as well. Because even when we started, there probably would have been a lot of older players who were like, "I've done this for a long time. I don't need anyone to be telling me what." But I think like I always try to say anyway, it's not really to punish people. When we see someone using the GPS going, you're the bottom of the table, you're going and doing whatever extra, like that's not how we want it to be used either. We just want it to be used to understand the game demands and be able to train appropriately. So yeah, a really interesting and fascinating job. So enjoying my time there as well.
Yeah, Jesus, brilliant. I wouldn't mind seeing my stats at the end of the day with the little man getting me around the house all day long now, but it'd be an interesting one again.
You have your hands full now.
Oh no! But tell me this, Baz, how important is kind of the GPSs and the monitor and the tracking within county teams? Because I was chatting to Conor Gurney obviously last week, and I don't think he was the biggest fan of the GPS, but I've heard some of his stats over the years have been absolutely unbelievable. Like, how interesting does it make it for the players and even yourselves as a company?
Yeah. Look, I think it's always tough. I think some people try to say, and like we're a company who specializes in that, and we certainly don't say it's the be all and end all as well. Like, it's one part of a system, of a massive sort of complex system. You take in nutrition, take in strength and conditioning, lifestyle, just so much that goes into it, the camaraderie and everything. And this is another part. Like the way the tech is used now is if it's used in games, you're able to understand, what are the outputs in games, and then, that's your gold standard essentially, and you can prepare yourself appropriately in training. So like, if I know that, for instance, we have like a max intensity period in our software where you look at the most intense 3 minutes in a game, like what that involves, sort of sprint and distance, everything that's involved in that. You can replicate that in training, so you're making sure that when it happens in a game, that's not the first time you're exposed to it, So it's more about injury prevention and being prepared, because like the game, GA has changed, even, football has changed in the Premier League and everything. The amount of high speed running now that they do, like the total distance stays about the same, but the amount of that they do at high speed is incredible now, and it's just making sure that the players can engage in that. And it needs to be done right. I alluded to you there, like if someone is using it, and usually if people say they don't like GPS, they either don't really know how to use the numbers or don't know what they're doing with it. They just have it because they have it. And then if it's a player saying they don't like it, they've probably been punished because of it, which is not how it should be used either. You know what I mean? You use it to educate, and you use it to bring the player forward. But players love competing on things, especially like max speed and stuff. Seeing who's the top on that, and then it's position specific. Like, if you look at, let's say, Padraig Faulkner's playing full back, like, we don't necessarily want him to be having a load of high speed running and all that kind of stuff, because it might mean he's out of position all the time or he's chasing his tail. You know what I mean? Whereas someone around the middle of the field, you want them to be able to move and get up and down the pitch effectively. So it just depends, but players are really receptive now, like, because there's so much technology, like, they're always wearing watches or something that tracks everything they do or sleep, and yeah, they're really bought into it. So yeah, I think it's been an education process. As I say, some players, like older school players, sort of feel, yeah, I don't need that. But normally, you'll notice that the players who sort of understand where they're at and everything will be interested in it, just because they'll want to prolong their career as much as they can as well, like. So yeah, it's interesting. It definitely makes for a good interest when you bring it to games. It has like a placebo effect now at club level as well. Whenever you put it on someone, they seem to run a little bit quicker than they normally do.
Yeah, no, look, it's intriguing stuff, Barry, and like, I suppose when you're saying with maybe the older generation ones that maybe backing away from it, but is it just like the general lack of understanding or the lack of education around it, Barry? Because it is probably in the last couple of years, a new thing that has been brought in, but is it just the lack of understanding around it, Barry, where people can just be a bit, I suppose, confused by it?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Like, the worst thing you could see for as a coach or maybe a player is a big table of numbers and sort of look at it and go, Jesus, what am I looking at here? Like, it needs to be said in the right context. If I'm telling a cornerback, or yeah, let's take a cornerback, if I'm telling them you need to be quick off the mark, and we're looking at accelerations and everything here, you need to put that in the context of why that's important for him. Like, not just telling them, your total distance was the third lowest from the bottom.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about his total distance. He's got a job to do in that position, or she's got a job to do in that position. You could be man marking someone. It's always in the context of the game, and I think that's what people sometimes lose. Even when you look at the Champions League, even on TV, you might see such and such a player's at the bottom of the table, and it's like that number without any context is kind of useless. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what he's meant to be doing. So it sort of just comes back to understanding why you want to use it first. So, like, normally, like if I was working with a team or something, I was talking to the coach, I'd be asking, okay, what style of play do you want to play? Like, are we going to play on the break? Are we going to play, sit back and then all break out? Are we, do we want our wing forwards coming back or getting up and down the field? Because it sort of then dictates, what type of players do you need to fulfill those positions, and what does that look like physically? So you always need to start with the why you want to use it. And if the why is because I want to see who's at the bottom of the runs, then yeah, you're using it for the wrong reasons. It's you've got to use it in a better context than that, where you educate the players. And I think you're right. I think it does. It's quite new in the GA, especially starting to filter down to club levels now. I think there definitely could be more done to educate people around how to use it. And I think there's a lot more. There's a lot more sports scientists working with clubs at varying levels as well, obviously in different counties, and the input they have there. So it's just trying to make it easily digestible and make it in the context that they understand. Like, there's no point telling the player, oh, you ran 7K, and they don't know if that's good or bad or indifferent. You just need to tell them, for your position, normally someone as a wing half back would cover this much high speed running. Here's what you're covering. We want to get you up a little bit. And here's where you could do it, because there's nothing worse than aimlessly running as well. So we always say trying to tie the two together. I know you'd probably take stats even at your own club games or whatever, where like number of kickouts won or number of touches, but if some fella runs 12K and touches the ball once, that's probably no good to anybody either. So it's completely about the context that you use it in.
Yeah, no, that's super. I suppose, is the professionalism that the game always probably craves, Barry? Because, like, at the end of the day, you always hear lads, oh, how do they do? And just, I'd love to know how far I ran, and my output all the time. And people's obviously always craving the best. Like, is it just that bit of professionalism that everyone always craved, Barry?
Yeah, I think so. And even with the consumer device we have, we have individual players sort of getting it for themselves, and it gives you a sense of comfort as well. That you have put in as much effort as you can as well. Like, because look, there's loads of things that dictate it. if you're winning, if you're losing, who you're playing against, the weather, lots of things can affect the numbers. But I think people like to be able to see the sort of outputs that they have, and for them it's a sense of, okay, yeah, look, I put in the effort, just hasn't worked out for me. Or it gives them some targets. You see the numbers at the start of the year maybe, and you're like, by summer I want to be hitting. Usually max speed is the one that's most understandable to people. Unfortunately for me, I think the max speed days are long gone now. They're I can't break much further than the 9 meters per second. I'm just in under that now. I don't think I'll get over it getting any older. But yeah, some players are obviously blessed with speed and stuff like that, and that's what they're sort of concentrating on to give them an indication of where they're at as well. So it's it's intriguing, and yeah, look, players shouldn't get too hung up on it either.
Yeah.
Like, you can play well and have poor numbers. That's what people need to remember. You can still score 4 or 5 points and have bad GPS numbers, but if you're meant to be running, if the team depends on, if it's a team where everyone's meant to be working in unison, then if you're the only one with numbers down, you're letting the team down. You know what I mean? You're not working hard enough. So it's just all in that context of how you, the team, or the coach wants to play a lot.
Yeah, and have you seen kind of obviously you've worked with teams and you've seen it all really. Have you seen kind of ones kind of get fixated on it and just obsessed by it because it don't seem to be the thing. Oh my God, I was behind that lad. I want to get up to that level. Have you seen lads probably?
For sure.
Lose their shit maybe.
Yeah, it's and I think sometimes as well it can be used. Now it shouldn't be, but it can be used to pick the player, this fella's numbers is great, but you can't do that. It needs to be all in. Take everything into account. The player, his experience, what he's able to do, what age he is, everything. But yeah, there is players who get fixated on numbers, trying to. I don't know if they'd be happy. I haven't seen this happen, but they're fixated on hitting a certain number in a game for total distance or that, and they still might have played terribly, but they're looking at the number going, I've done everything I can, and then you're going, well, in the context of the game, you didn't, because sometimes, even for myself, if I say I play centre back or whatever, if I have really high numbers, I'm sort of thinking, what have I been doing? I'm getting dragged all over the pitch here, where I should be holding my position in the centre and being able to be the centre of the team. So with the stuff as well, there's some heat maps and everything, so you can see time spent on the field and everything. So it does help with positional stuff like that as well, But in GA, positions nowadays are maybe at club level, I think they're still fairly relevant, but at intercounty level, the guys are everywhere, even more so than Jason McLaughlin, obviously getting up and kicking a few points as well on his weaker foot as well.
Yeah. No, it's intriguing stuff, and I suppose you've said you're a partner with, say, Manchester United and some absolutely massive sporting organisations. A really cool experience, I suppose, Barry.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. I've been extremely lucky now. I travelled to a lot of teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United. Been in at the training facilities and everything there with the staff, and then we work with 15 of the Premier League teams it is at the minute. So Ireland rugby, England rugby, a lot of the biggest rugby organisations throughout the world, and it's fantastic. It's great getting in there, showing the tech and everything, and it looks good on Instagram and stuff anyway for a while. But it's still, you usually travel on your own and stuff, so it can be quite boring outside of that. But definitely some of the highlights would be obviously being a United supporter, being able to get over there and see Carrington and stuff like that. It was brilliant. And then Barcelona, got to see Messi training and stuff as well. So it was good. There's certain perks to it for sure. So it's good. I travelled to Australia as well, actually, with the international rules team, as the sports scientist. The time Nicholas Walsh was involved as well. So that was a brilliant experience as well, to be able to travel with that. So been some nice experiences throughout the time now.
Yeah, I'd say the new camp's a bit different from Drone's home pitch, but
Drum's home pitch used to be known as Galatasaray as well. I don't know if you've heard
Yeah,
that, but yeah, very small pitch, and I don't. It's a much different field than most other pitches that you play on. It's the grass doesn't always be just as short as some people might like it to be, but yeah, it's brilliant. I have very good memories of playing there and everything, and always been hard to beat at home. Although now we probably took a few tankings in our time as well, I'd say now.
yeah. And I suppose do you have any kind of stories from, say, like any of the stars you kind of have maybe monitor? Like, have you like obviously when you're analysing the stats, like have you ever been like, oh my god, that is just unbelievable? Like, do you have any kind of stories to kind of tell the listeners over some top athletes you've analysed?
Yeah, I think like for me now, it wouldn't be anything specifically on numbers, but like I think what you notice with these guys is the efficiency at which they reach like top speeds. Like some of the players be hitting close to like 11 meters per second, which is extremely quick. 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, and they can do that over such a short distance as well. But then they're professional athletes, and that's their day job, and they're dedicated to that as well. And now, look, to be honest with you, like I know when you look from the outside in, when you look at professional clubs, you think probably like these guys are maybe stuck up or something like that. When you're in the facilities, it's they're normal. They're the same as everyone else. It's they're human beings. I think for them, it's probably the trust. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people try to catch them out and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think once you're in their own environment, it's just like anything else, and they're hugely welcoming, and it's great to see how they sort of work in a professional environment and the kind of standards that they hold themselves to. But for them players, for sure, they're really interested in the numbers and everything as well. They see it every day, and once they train, they get reports and see the numbers that they've done and understand if that's good or bad for them and what they should be doing. So, but again, that's all that comes with the professional setup and the amount of staff that they have working behind the scenes to produce this stuff, But no, nothing too exciting for you in regards to the stories around it, but a good experience all the same.
Yeah, and you see, you witnessed Lionel Messi in action. Describe
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, I've seen him play before, just in Old Trafford when you'll remember obviously the year we beat Barcelona in Old Trafford with Paul Scholes scored the rocket. I was at that game and I watched him and watched Patrice Evra sit in his pocket for 90 minutes because he was just following him everywhere. But just in training, like some of the stuff, just unbelievable technical ability, and that goes for a lot of players. These guys, even I don't know anyone offhand, but even players that you might think are not as technically gifted, like when you watch them and train, you're like, Jesus, they're phenomenal players, like, you know what I mean? So it's Messi and that. Just even watching Barcelona train, it was all, I'd say it was many years ago, maybe 5 years ago at this stage. It's all like, small sort of short, sharp passing, and the way they play and the way the beautiful game was for them. But obviously they haven't performed as well recently. But yeah, it's nice to see the different sort of training modalities and what they do. They focus a lot on technical. Obviously they were still physically fit, but most of the training was evolved around technical stuff, and that's probably an area where sometimes I feel GA maybe steps away from too much sometimes, especially at club level. Just this fixation on being the fittest. And if you ask a player how prepared are you, they'll say, I was running this week, I was at the gym 6 times and happy days. And you go, when's the last time you kicked the ball? And you go, and even if you ask most GA players now, do you have any footballs at home, they'll probably say no, don't have any. You're like, that's the game. Like, it's okay, yeah, you can be fit and everything, but I definitely think even at a younger age, I'd like to see it come back to being more about the technical skills, and especially being both left and right footed. You see a lot of players who can't, even sometimes, like most county players now can't, to be honest. But at club level, it's highly, like, whoever I mark at club level, normally I just figure out can this fella kick with both feet early on in the game? I'll try push him on the both sides. If he can't, then he can go by me on the right side all the time if he's only left footed, because I know he needs to come back, so yeah, definitely. I think it'd be nice to see. I know you were saying you were down kicking a few balls there, so that's the right thing to be doing, but I think more people should do that. That's the enjoyable part of it as well, sort of performing and actually playing the game. Sometimes people get caught up in all the running and gym and fitness and everything.
Yeah, no, I'm intrigued by Barry, because I always would be not the opinion. Unfortunately, weights don't kick the ball over the bar as much as managers believe they do. But I do feel like everyone gets fixated on, I suppose, gym and running a bit to pieces. And do you feel managers get lost in the fundamentals of the game, especially in the club? Because you need scores to win games, simple as that. And some lads nearly forget what it is like to kick a ball, and it is so bloody important to actually go down and kick a few points and actually fist pass it. Just do this, because you do honestly get so obsessed with running and just looking big and strong.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're lucky enough now with Dundalk Gales. We usually at the start of practice do, in groups of 3, a lot of kicking and everything, and that's how our sessions sort of start. And the players sort of lead kicking scores and stuff before training as well. Get there 10 minutes early, sort of do some shooting drills and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think I don't know if they're fixated, but I think managers take it for granted, John, that adult players are able to perform all skills equally well on both sides. It's you just need to take some time out. Just even being able to hand pass off both hands is the amount of times that gets me out of trouble, because I can go off both sides, or if someone's marking me, they might not know what foot I'm going to kick with or whatever. It just makes it so much more difficult and makes you more evasive. And then, because the game has turned into such a running game, I think thankfully, Dublin play the game properly as well. You know what I mean? Their kick passing is, their ability to do the simple skills is phenomenal. I know people will look at them and people will have opinions on all the things they've got going for them, and money and facilities and all that. But if you just put all that aside and look at the players, they do the simple things correct all the time. I mean, all the time. Even when Cavan played them, any mistake or turnover, they very rarely kick it back to you. In a club game, you'll see someone might win it, and then next thing you'll boot it forward and it's gone. They do the simple thing. Right man gets the ball, keep the ball, always shoot from the right position. And I think that's certainly if I was coaching a team, which hopefully I will do in the future, with the technical ability, there's still a lot to be said for that, because you can catch up on fitness. You know what I mean? You can. Everyone can train to be the same. That's an effort thing, but when you come down to ability, when you're under pressure or fatigue, then that's a different story.
Yeah, and it's the generational kind of thing, Barry, as well, because I know from the young lads kind of going to the gym and looking big and looking strong, but they might not have been kicking a ball, as you said, they might not own a football at home, if it's a piece. Do you think it's just the general crop at the minute, just wanting to look big and probably for Instagram, and Jesus, my muscles are bursting out of my jersey? Yeah. But do you know how? Can you kick at both feet? Can you do the basics? Is it a generational thing, Barry?
I think it's probably just the way the game, or maybe the way that people perceive the game, changed as well. When people looked at Dublin, that was the first thing they noticed, was Jesus, look how they look physically, but people always forgot that they also had the ability as well, to come alongside it. So yeah, I think there is a little bit of the generational thing for sure, John, with Instagram and all that. And I'm on Instagram and stuff, but yeah, unfortunately I don't have the muscles to be showing off. But look, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on young guys now as well to look a certain way, even outside of football, and I'm sure it puts a lot of pressure on them from a mental side of things, and sort of what you need to live up to. And that's I'm glad that I wasn't born when all this was going on, because there's a lot of social media. It's surely a lot of pressure, and I think just taking it back to the basics and for them to enjoy it as well, because the football's what you enjoy. So like you need to be playing football. You need to be practicing them skills, and that's the most enjoyable part. If you think about it, that's why you started playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I come towards the other side of my career now, that's why you enjoy playing as well. Like it still gets you through if you're technically more gifted than someone else. Because as I say, we were just even doing some videos and stuff for the Dundalk Gales youngsters this week, just for home and stuff like, and it's all about that kind of skills and both sides as well, because it's so hard to mark a player who's 2-footed compared to someone who is always going to be. But yeah, I think you're right, John. It's probably just a little bit of a generational thing, but then coaches probably feed into that. Coaches are like, we need to be strong. We want to play a defensive system. We need to be physically fit, but all the while not taking into account the skills. And another one is Currafin, like that's poetry in motion, like, you know what I mean, with how good they are at kick passing is so good, like, and I enjoy watching them so much because everything they do, when you look at it, you go, that's simple, like, why can't everyone do that? It's not complicated, like, but people like overcomplicating things as well, just to to make it look like they're doing a better job than they are. So
yeah, like, I don't know, it's an interesting topic because, like, I think the days of, oh, geez, a bag of balls and, like, oh, we'll be doing kicking sessions, whatever, and we need to do like 100-meter runs and run, and all, like, fixated managers get on it. But, like, can you see that changing, Barry? Because obviously you're heavily involved with stat sports. Can you see any of that changing, or are managers just so drawn into, Jesus, we need to be fit, we need to look big? Like, is the day of, I don't know, lads just, as I done this evening, go down, just kick a few points? Like, are them days really numbered at this stage, Barry, or will we get back to that sort of routine, I suppose?
I think what the issue is everyone looks short term. Like, you get a manager in, he looks at, geez, we need to do well this year, like, do you know what I mean? And that's fair enough. Look, GA managers and how they get paid and all that kind of stuff is probably not an area we want to touch on, but like, I think they just look at the really short term. So they're like, what's the most bang for my buck? Like, how can I make this team perform as well as I can in the shortest period of time? And usually when you go to club level, that's fitness. Like, you go, okay, look, we've got decent players here. If they're able to get around the field and compete and be the fittest or whatever, then we've got a chance, But I think if you look at teams who maybe look a little bit longer term, and not even a senior team, you've got to look at their underage structure. Like, if they're promoting, the skills and technical ability from a young age, probably the kids will enjoy it more. Even, I know when teams go to under 16, they immediately treat them like an adult team and start running them around the pitch. And at that age, boys and girls at that age have probably better things to be doing than being shouted at from the sideline to run around the field. So, yeah, I think, the managers have just got to be careful what they feed. And also, if I was at a club, I'd be trying to, I know at senior level, the manager changes and look, that happens, but I think you want to try look at what you want for the future for that club. You know what I mean? You want to bring through players. It won't happen overnight. It might take 3-4 years, but you've got to look longer term at the development of the players and just stick with it, because it's the hardest thing to do, because the easy thing to do is to look for short-term success and then just go, the players aren't putting in the effort or they're not good enough. Whereas if you sort of stick with the plan, and you'll probably fail in years 1 and 2, but once you come through 3 or 4 years of it, you'll start to see you've got a much bigger turnover of players entering into the senior fray, and they're all technically more gifted as well. So I think it comes down to clubs as well, not wanting short-term success, but that's human nature, I think, isn't it? Everyone wants to win now and wants to do this now, and it's harder work doing it for the long term.
Yeah, and so last thing on it, like, and you did reference it, the Corfin, they're just an absolute joy to watch. Anytime we've watched them, they're just an incredible team to watch, and I'd love to see them hopefully in the near future again if it does happen. But that's what I mean. The fundamentals of the game, Barry, fist passing, kick passing, and if you look at it, the Corofin boys actually aren't really ripping out of their jerseys. They're just fit men, I suppose, and really good at the basics, as you said, Dublin as well. But like, should Corofin be used as a template for clubs around Ireland, Barry, and even counties?
Yeah, I think like the way they play the game is how everyone would like to see it played. But now look, I'm not that naive to think that everyone has the ability that they have at their disposal. But then you go, is that by chance? Like, did they just get lucky and have all these players? No, they didn't. Like, that's not by chance. There's people in the background who all of us don't know, probably never heard of, but they've contributed to all these All Irelands, like, because they've took a longer term look at the whole structure and went, okay, we want to bring through players that can do all of these things by the time they're 16, 17, and we want to give a constant conveyor belt of these players so that eventually you end up with 30, 35 players who are all equally as good, you know. So I think, other teams should try to learn from them, but I think what people fall into the trap of doing is going, oh yeah, we'll play like Corofin, and think in 8 weeks you can decide that you're going to play like Corofin and be able to pass the ball like that and move like they move. That's, years of them wanting to play a certain way. I'm assuming now, I don't know the whole ins and outs, but when you look at it, it looks like it's just natural to them, And they work hard as well, that's a given, I suppose, you expect from every team. So
yeah, we talk about teams being good for your mental health to watch. I think Corofin will definitely do that for everyone around Ireland without a shadow of a doubt. And I suppose, Barry, kind of pushing on, like you're loving your job, you're loving bits and pieces, and you're enjoying it. Like, what have been the plans for the future? And it was like you're happy enough.
Yeah, like for me, it's all's going good here in Dundalk. Yeah, future is up around here. So still play away as long as I can, as long as the body lets me. Feels good at the minute. Probably feels better than it has for a while. So looking forward to maybe getting some game time in this year and keep playing as long as I can. And then just sort of mention it there. Ultimately, I would like to get into some coaching and stuff as well. And then on a personal level, like work and stuff, everything's going great there. The company, is still expanding. So looking forward to growing with that. And for myself is just getting the family and everything set up here as well. So that's really it. Nothing too exciting. I can't look too far ahead now with COVID as well. So we'll see how it all goes.
Yeah, geez, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, Barry, look, I could talk to you for another 3 or 4 hours here happily, but it's always a very interesting chapter, my man. Barry Waters, head of sports science with Stat Sports. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You're one of the good guys. I've always a great time for you. Thanks a million for joining me on the JMac podcast this week.
No problem at all, John. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully some people find some parts of it interesting.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Barry, you're top man. Thanks very much.
Good man, John.